Got this Toro lawnmower that just come in, 6.5 horsepower Tecumseh engine. The guy says it won't even start. When it did start, it won't run for long. So I suspect it's bad gas and probably a dirty carburetor. Now when you get a mower that's not running like that, when you want to diagnose it, the first thing you can do is take the plug off and check for spark. The plug looks really bad on this one, it's pretty black, so I'm going to replace it after. But first I'm going to check for spark. So I put a pair of vice grip there to hold the brake down. Now what you need to do is put the plug in the cap, ground it to the engine, and then pull the engine over or have a friend pull it for you. And it's got spark. The plug that goes on there is an RJ19LM Champion, and I've gapped it at 30. Now on this mower here, I'm going to remove the fuel tank, drain the gas, and I'm also going to check the carburetor because I want to make sure that it's problem free. On this particular model, you got to take off the 4 bolts over here, and they're 1/4 inch. Now to get the cover completely off on these, you have to remove the oil dipstick. And then slide this off. Next I'm going to remove the fuel tank. You have to pull the fuel tank back and then pull up. Next you want to remove the fuel clip with a pair of pliers like this. Just squeeze it, bring it down. If your gas is still good, you can leave the fuel tank upside down. If not, just dump it in. So the fuel wasn't too bad in there, so I suspect it's a carburetor problem, and I'm going to remove it now. First you'll need to remove the muffler, and there are 2 7/16 bolts. Now to remove the carburetor, you have to remove these 2 bolts here. They're either 3/8 or Phillips screwdriver. Now you'll just have to pry it off, like that. Next you'll have to remove this hose here from the carb. Now you have to remove the linkages and make sure you remember exactly where they are. Now this arm here goes on the hole on top. So what you would do here is pry this back like this, and it's going to come out. And now with this linkage, you would just work it out of its hole as well. And there we go. So now the carb's off. So I made a little mark here with a marker to remember exactly the hole that the linkage went in. Next, what you need to do is to remove the bowl nut here, which is the jet as well, with a 1/2 inch wrench. Let's see what it looks like. Looks pretty clean. Now to do a good clean on this carburetor, you would remove this pin, which will remove the float and the needle. And the needle will be attached like that. And you would spray your carburetor cleaner all inside here, inside the emulsion tube, in here. Make sure that that's all clean. This one's clean, so I'm just going to put it back together. Make sure the needle is on the float like this. Insert it back in. Then just put your pin back on. Now what gets dirty sometimes on these carburetors is the fixed jet over here. There's a hole on each side here, so there's 2 holes. Then there's a hole in the center over here. And there's also a little hole on the side up here. So you grab a small wire like that, run it through the hole, And if you can see the wire going through on the other side like this, then you know it's clean. Then you would run it through the center, and you should see the wire through this hole here, which goes right across, and that's clean. And then run it across like that. So I know it's not a carburetor issue. I'm just going to put it back together. And before I do that, I'm just going to clean the inside of the bowl here. This has to be nice and clean. Also, if there's corrosion inside here, make sure you replace the bowl, because you can have an air leak and your lawnmower is not going to run properly. And also, if the bowl's corroded, replace this O-ring over here. So now when you put this back together, put the flat side of the bowl toward the needle back here, like that. And then put the bolt back on. You can use an old paintbrush like this to clean off the dirt. When it comes time to put the carburetor back on, you want to make sure you have the linkage in this way, in the second hole over here. Next, you want to grab the linkage with the spring and insert it into the bottom hole over here. Like that. Next, put the other linkage in the top hole. Next, you would line up the carburetor to the two holes here. Next, put this back on. And you can check your air filter by rotating this and pulling it out and seeing if it's good. This one's nice and clean. Now I'm going to reinsert the fuel tank. And just slide these grooves here in these grooves over here. And push down. And that's on. Take the dipstick out again, put the cover back on. And now just tighten up all the little bolts on top here with your 1/4-inch socket. And don't forget to put the muffler back on. Gonna put some fresh gas in there. She's ready to go now, so I'll try starting it up, see what happens. Give it some primer. So it runs pretty good now. What I think it was a combination of a bad spark plug and old fuel. And I just double checked the carburetor just to make sure, because you never know what's in there once it leaves your shop. So anyway, she's ready to go. I'll just try it out. And it's a self-propelled mower as well, so it doesn't require hardly any effort to use.